Welcome to Savor the Story podcast, where books and snacks are life. I'm Nicole.
And I'm Vanessa. And this is Bonus Bites, Eclipse.
I'm glad you said it.
You were going to say bookish, weren't you?
No, I wrote it down. I wrote it down this time, but it's still good that you said it.
Okay, great. Yes, it's Eclipse, Twilight number 3.
Mm-hmm.
So because these are traditionally long, I'm going to jump right in.
Yes.
Okay. So first off, we watched New Moon. So before we even jump into Eclipse, we're going to talk about the fact that we watched New Moon. And before you tell me any of your thoughts, I have to tell you that I did some Googling because in the last episode, I'm pretty sure I said that Taylor Lautner was like 5'6". I was wrong. He's not much taller, but I was wrong. So Taylor Lautner is 5'9".
Oh.
So he's still not 6'7" like Jacob is supposed to be.
Well, creative, like whatever.
Yes. And in the last episode as well, we talked about that scene with Jacob and Mike at the movie theater and how he's supposed to be like so imposing because he's 6'5". Well, Taylor Lautner is 5'9", and the guy who plays Mike is 5'10". So the scene didn't play out exactly the same way. And then just for fun, Robert Pattinson is 6'1".
Oh.
So he's taller than Jacob. And then part of the some of the guys from the pack, Quill, the guy who plays Quill, is 5'8". Paul is 5'11". Embry is 5'10", and at the tallest, Sam is 6'2".
Dang.
This is not the same pack from the book. For sure.
I guess at least I mean, I can't even say that because he's 17 years old, but at least he was ripped, I guess.
Right. Oh, yes, that was another thing I did look up. So when the movie came out, he was 17, but he was 3 months away from being 18. And in my Googling, his birthday is my birthday.
Yay! Happy birthday!
Taylor Lautner and me share a birthday.
I'm going to make you one of those little hearts. Feels like Taylor and Vanessa.
Excellent.
Happy birthday.
So yeah, those are some things that I looked up. And can I tell you one random thing before you tell me what your thoughts are? So when I was looking this up, did you ever watch the show Walking Dead? I don't know why you would, because you are not.
No.
But the girl who plays Angela in the Twilight movies is Rosita from Walking Dead. And I never connected these two. When we're done, I'm gonna have to show you a picture of what she looks like on Walking Dead versus what she looks like in Twilight, and they're not the same person. They can't be the same person.
Well,
yes,
you say that, and I know I showed you this picture at work on Thursday, or the video, because I was on TikTok, and it keeps showing me videos of the TV show Nurse Jackie, and I was like, why in the heck, how did this get on my TikTok feed or whatever? And then I realized that there's a doctor who may also be in Twilight.
Peter, I think Facinelli, is his last name.
Yes, so Carlisle is a doctor in the TV show Nurse Jackie.
But at least Carlisle looks like Carlisle. Like, you see him and you could be like, yeah, that's Carlisle.
Yes.
Rosita and Angela do not look alike.
No.
Yeah, that was all my Google news from New Moon and beyond. So now I would like you to tell me, how did you feel about the movie?
So I will say, so far, now that we've read and at least watched past the halfway point, at least read past the halfway point, I think I enjoyed the movies more than I like the books.
Okay. Because you get less Bella?
Yes. 100%. I do not have to listen to internal Bella.
All right. That's fair. How did you feel about how they did the wolves?
Oh, I liked it. I thought they were great.
Excellent.
I had no problems. I know there was previous conversations, like everybody was super like, oh my gosh, how are they going to do it? I thought it was great for like whatever CGI was at and whenever that movie, 2003. I thought it was great. Oh, 2009.
Yeah.
Still great.
Yes.
So, I will say that a couple things. I was sad that Jacob cut all his hair.
Ah, yes.
Oh, so sad. He's adorable with long hair. And then back to my first comment about not listening to Bella.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm convinced now that if Edward could hear Bella's thoughts,
he wouldn't love her.
The book would have taken a wildly different arc. There would have not been 4 books.
Interesting take on that.
Yeah. In book 2, when Edward was like, see you later, alligator, he would have never come back. Convinced.
Okay. All right.
So,
hot take. Yeah.
Also, my last thought between the book and the movie.
Yes.
Do you remember when I was talking about that weird lip fetish that Stephanie has? And I was like, I was 1000% happy to not see any of that in the movie.
That we didn't have to watch them do that.
That like weird, like, I know you guys can't see me, but just like him fingering her lips. Like,
so gross.
I know it's not meant to be weird, but just saying it and thinking about it makes it weird. So
yes, it was not in the movie. And it does not repeat that I remember reading in Eclipse. Does it? You're going to have to tell me what page, because I was looking for it and I didn't get it.
So it's not, it's there a little bit. And I did put a sticky note on the page because I was like, sticker note. I did sticky notes today for this book. So I did put a sticky note on the page so we could go through and experience it together.
Okay, great. Okay. So we're going to jump in now. Remember, let's hold on first. Let me tell you, Eclipse, Twilight Saga number 3 came out on August 2nd, 2008 and is 629 pages.
Yes. Yes, it is.
And you felt all of it.
I felt every page.
Okay.
So before you start in the book, I have a sticky note on page 0.
Okay.
And I want to just clear the air a little bit here and say I need to start by saying that I hate Bella so much that it has affected my ability to be non-judgmental in this book, and I apologize to all the Bella lovers out there, but Bella is a terrible person.
Are there Bella lovers out there? There might be. Who knows?
No clue.
Okay. All right. So go ahead.
I also have to say that I started reading the first, I don't know, maybe 120 pages right after we did the first book. And then I stopped reading it until yesterday. So some of my notes might be like, why did I write this?
Okay, that's fair. I did not do that.
Did you just power through it?
I read it all. Yes, I did. So today is Monday, and Friday night I read 130 pages, and then I read the other 500 pages on Saturday. Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
so
I admire that in you.
I made myself do it. So yes. All right. So we start with Jacob not talking to Bella. This is where we start the book. And before we even talk about Jacob, I have to know, this is such a random thing. Why did Charlie not know that you can't put metal in the fucking microwave?
I don't know.
That was such a weird, like, this is an adult man who has taken care of himself for a very long time.
He didn't once try this before.
Right? Okay.
It wasn't until Bella showed up and started using aluminum foil that he was like, oh, there's problems here.
Right? Okay, so that was just a random side note for you, but I
have many of those.
Okay, good.
Once we get closer to, so I know for sure that at the end of the book, I have 2 or 3 where I was like, what the fuck, Stephanie? That's not a real thing.
Okay, great. Okay, so I think it's cute, the letter that Jacob writes her, that like all the little things are crossed out, like all the reasons why, whatever, and then ultimately he's just like, yeah, I miss you.
Yeah.
So there's I literally, my post-it note just says haha because this line made me think of you, because Charlie tells Bella, I'm thinking maybe you deserve a parole for good behavior. For a teenager, you're amazingly non-whiny. And as soon as I read it, I was like, Nicole disagrees.
Yes. It is because he does not hear her innermost thoughts.
That's right.
She just hides in a fucking bedroom all day.
Yes. And then I also noted in this section here, Bella is such a fucking bitch to Charlie.
Yes.
Like, she's so mean. Like, he is trying to tell her, like, hey, go out and have some friends. Like, maybe balance is good. Like, maybe you shouldn't put your entire world into this one person. And she gets the biggest attitude with him. That is the most teenager thing that you just were told that you were not.
Right. And it's not the only time in the book either. I'm pretty sure she does it later.
Yeah, she's such a dick, and I don't know why.
Yeah. So, yeah, this book really solidified for me how terrible of a person Bella is.
Yeah, she's
like, before it was just like, man, you are whiny little prick. Yes. And now I'm like, God, you are just a bad person too.
You're seriously just an asshole. I do think it's funny though that Charlie was like, isn't Edward up for a little healthy competition? Like, yeah, he's like, go out and talk to other people, man.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and kind of going back to that a little bit is, you know, because I think it's before that. I can't remember, but
I mean, we're only like 20 something pages in at this point, so it's probably all within that first chapter.
Yeah. But it's even before that, because I have my first note as I know a carryover from book 2, but like when she puts on, when she's talking and she's like, when she's pissed about being the fiance. I was like, and I know Edward says it later in the book, like, I don't fucking understand, but like, can, like, please somebody explain to her.
Yes.
That there is literally no difference. And exactly. She's just like, ugh.
Yeah.
I can't be married.
It was almost like Stephanie needed her to be against something.
Right.
Like 99.9% in. She just needed like a 0.1 of something for her to be against. Otherwise, Bella would have no, like, nothing.
Right.
So,
yeah. So I know, like, I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but like, because she does get to a point where she kind of touches on why she doesn't like it, and she blames Renee basically, and she says, you know, she's talking about how basically this is Renee had strong feelings about this, and she is her mother, and she, you know, shouldn't like make her. But one part, she's literally talking about how much she's the adult and Renee acts like the child, and then the next paragraph she's like, well, you know, I have to listen to her opinion about marriage because she's the adult. Bitch, right. You just talked about 3 pages about how she was a child, and now you're going to listen to her? Come on.
When it fits your needs.
Right.
Yeah, that's...
There's literally no continuity in any of these books.
Nope. Okay, so in the same same little area. I think we're pretty much like we haven't left the house yet. This is the part of the book that I fucking hate Edward. Yes. It is not until we get like much further that I'm like, okay, here, I even have a post-it note. We'll get there where I'm like, okay, this is the Edward that I enjoyed when I was a 20 something. For these first, okay, so I have one here that says, you know, it's out of the question for you to be around a werewolf unprotected. 1. Mm-hmm. And then he says, I am not going to tolerate anything dangerous. 2. 3, she says, yeah, sure, I was free to go anywhere I wanted except La Push. Free to do anything I wanted except see Jacob. Like, when did Edward become... Oh, I have another one. He said, I knew I wouldn't be allowed to go to the werewolf party, even with parental supervision. Okay, now we're at a point to where Edward is allowing you to do things, and he's like, when did he become this person? Like,
yeah, he's that way for the first like half of the book.
Yes, I am so disappointed in Edward for this first part, because he's so controlling.
He is. And he also, I have a note in here at one point where he's like, he's talking about how, you know, it's out of the question. And he basically is like, it'll be your fault if a war starts because I have to come get you.
Right.
Like, don't be a dick, Edward.
He's like, I literally, my next note says, what a dick. Yeah, I don't like, I get what, like, I understand what was happening, right? Like, he was trying to keep her safe or whatever, but this whole thing about him, like, not allowing her to go there, all this stuff, I know all this stuff ultimately gets resolved and he finally sees the error in his ways, but it's so intense in this first half of the book. I hated him.
Yeah. Because,
like, I don't know. How did I love this character so much before? Yeah. Because it's so disappointing of how, like, mean he is about all this stuff. Like, she, up until this point, had been around him all the time and he was fine. And, like, I don't know. It just felt weird. And then he brought up, he told Charlie about the airplane tickets. And I was like, she said no.
Yeah.
I know later we find out the reason was because he knew that the other vampires or whatever were going to be in town. But maybe you tell her that.
Right.
Maybe you don't just tell Charlie on your own. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I have a note where that happens, and it basically was like, careful, Edward, your misogyny is showing. Like,
yes. I do not remember him being I must have been so clouded by my Edward love.
Yeah, I didn't understand where the flip-flop happened.
Because... Yeah, he's not like that at all in the first two.
Yeah. I don't know.
All right, so we move past all of his, as you say, his misogyny. And I don't know if you have anything before this, but we make it to the point where Charlie wants to talk to her about her virginity, and it's so funny to me, just because it's hilarious that Charlie is trying to have this conversation with her.
Yeah. It was exactly how probably most father-daughter like conversations happen.
Yes.
So
he's like, I'm as uncomfortable as you are here, Bella. Oh, sorry. We're back to Edward being a dick because she decides that she wants to go see Jacob.
And she goes off.
And she's going to go drive off. And Edward disabled her fucking truck.
Mm-hmm.
What
Yep.
an asshole.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like you took controlling to another level.
Well, yeah. It was ridiculous. And she just like huffs and puffs and goes back into her house and like,
yeah. And then he says, like, if you're mad at me, I understand, close your window. And she closes her window, and then she's like, never mind.
Yeah, and then she
Let me
opens
open
it right back up. Like,
yes.
Okay.
Oh, no.
Yeah. But it was just like one of, like, I don't know. A lot of things, like, I think I've said before, I feel like Stephanie writes like, a lot of things happen conveniently.
Mm-hmm.
There's no like planning out and stuff like that. She's like, oh shit, how am I going to explain this? Alice.
Exactly.
You know, how did you know I was going to leave? Alice told me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right.
How convenient.
Yeah.
She couldn't tell you about your birthday fucking party or running away in book 1, but I thought you couldn't fucking see anything that had to do anything with werewolves.
Well, that's what she says, that she disappears.
Yeah.
And so
like, she knew she was with the werewolves. And it's like, how convenient.
Exactly. Then we go to it's in this part where we go to Florida. I feel like it's weird how she wrote this, because she kind of all wrote it as like Bella's memory of it instead of it actually happening, which was interesting.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, I had 2 sticky notes on the same page because I was like, because when I read it, I was like, how am I, what? Like, am I, what? Question mark? How am I not understanding geography right now? Like, fucking, is it Forks in Washington? And why, like, so she needs to fly east to go to Florida. Like, how is the sun working like this? And then, like, I kept going and I was like, oh. It's a flat, like, the end of the trip. We missed out on the whole entire Florida trip.
Yeah.
Which, just fucking leave it out then.
Yeah, I don't understand. Either write it as it happened. Like, what was the point of writing it as a memory or a flashback or whatever? Like,
right.
I don't.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you just say, we went to Florida, I saw my mom, whatever.
And she had feelings about Edward. And I was like, okay.
So
you could have just put that in an email.
Right. Exactly. After the visit or something.
Right. Yeah.
So I did write down on Renee's feelings about Edward. I wrote, how does this look exactly? Because she said, the way he watches you, it's so protective, like he's about to throw himself in front of a bullet to save you. What is he doing? Like, what does this look like? I need to know.
Like, hovering around her all the time,
just never taking his eyes off her. If I was her mom, I'd be like, that boy is obsessed. You need to be careful.
Right. Well, in the whole thing didn't, like, back to I said, more of like a convenience story, because like, oh, your mom tried to do her job or whatever, but at the same time, she even makes it a point to say that Edward had to stay inside fucking 12 plus hours of the day because he couldn't be out in the Florida sunshine. So what were you doing the other, let's call it 16 hours of the day?
Right.
Because it's June, remember?
Yeah.
Like, what was, where were you? I can't fathom. Like, as soon as she got back, was he just like all up in her space? Was he calling her 24/7?
Right.
Like, none of this is.
No.
It's all dumb.
No. And then Renee tells her that you orient yourself around him without even thinking about it. When he moves even a little bit, you adjust your position. Like, okay. I think this was just a way to like make it seem like they're super close and Renee noticed. Like, I don't know this.
Which could have been just like a conversation with like Charlie.
Right.
You know,
yeah, exactly.
Like, waste freaking 40 pages of my life.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we're back in Forks. We're heading to school the next day. and they pull up to the school and Jacob is there, now 6'7", and Edward wants her to stay in the car. Which, okay, all right. Like she was gonna stay in the car.
Right.
Okay, so Jacob is talking to them and he's like upset that Edward hasn't like told her anything, basically. Right. So the night before, they were chasing one of the vampires and Emmett almost went across the line, and then Emmett and Paul almost got into a fight, and like Edward is just keeping everything from her.
Yeah.
And I understand why Jacob is mad. Jacob is like, bro, she has a right to know like what's going on around her.
Yeah, like it doesn't make her any more safe.
Exactly. Right. You have accepted that she is in this life. She is in this life with vampires. She is in this life with werewolves. Fucking tell her when something is around that could hurt her. I also like this part. So in this scene, Jacob is playing back all of his memories so that Edward has to see. And I say, good job, Jacob.
Gotcha.
Way to throw it in his face. I like that Edward is just like, Jacob has a good memory. Yes. And I am reminded in this book that I really enjoy Emmett. Yes. His like random sense of humor sometimes is just like, all right, thank you, Emmett.
Yeah.
There's just this one that I highlighted that Emmett told Bella, I'm really glad Edward didn't kill you. Everything's so much more fun with you being around. I just think that's funny. And so right after this part, this is when she goes to work and Mrs. What's her name? Mike's mom is like, we don't need you today. Yeah. Like it's going to be a slow day, so you can leave. And she's like, yes. And she runs and she sneaks out. Yes. So she goes and hangs out with Jacob all day. And it's just more of her basically explaining to him that Edward thinks that being around werewolves is risky and all that.
Right.
We get some of Sam's story during this. So we learn that when Sam first changed, it actually took him 2 weeks to calm down enough to change back, which is terrifying, I feel.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. This is when we learn about imprinting.
Do we?
Yeah, page 122. We learn about imprinting. So this is when Jacob explains that a couple of the people in his pack have already imprinted and kind of like what imprinting is.
Dang.
And yeah. And then
I'm curious how I don't have any sticky notes on this.
Yes.
I was obviously just like, I don't fucking care.
Yeah, I do like though that they like give you the full explanation so that you can also, I think it's fair for this explanation too, because we know Jacob's feelings for her are just like normal feelings, not imprint feelings. And I think I'm going to jump way ahead real fast, but Edward says later in the book that he is like, he's fine with whatever Bella chooses. If Bella ultimately ends up choosing Jacob, then that's who she chooses. But there's always a chance that he could imprint on someone and leave her. So I feel like that's so true, right? Like, yeah, she could pick him, but ultimately, if he imprints on somebody, then you're done. You're out. So, yeah. Okay, so then now she's yelling. She's yelling at him, saying she's all pissed off because he's a vampire and he's a werewolf and blah, 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 blah.
This is just how it is. None of us have control. Literally nobody has control. Like, Jacob, or, Edward didn't ask to be a vampire. Jacob obviously didn't ask to be a werewolf. And the only thing that she has to say of that is, I'm a Virgo! Great. Stop being a crazy person. Fucking shut up, Bella. Give it a rest. Like, stop being so selfish. Like, he's, especially around Jacob, like, in the beginning, I know, like, she's giving him a hard time a lot, and maybe some of it's justified in the second half of the book, but in the first half of the book, she's just a bitch. Huh? And now, once again, she's just, like, flipping out about, how come I'm the only one? Stop fucking being so selfish.
And also, you already know, they've already promised that you're gonna change. Right. So get the fuck over it. It doesn't have to be a thing anymore.
Like, what's a couple months?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then she leaves, and Edward follows her like an asshole.
Yep. Waiting at the line.
Yes. Like, I don't know. He's such a dick. I do think it's hilarious, though, that she drove straight to Angela's house and was like, we're not having this conversation.
Like, I can't do this right now. I'm gonna go hide.
Yes. And then, so she's there for a while. She doesn't deal with Edward. And then later, when they finally have their conversation, he, like, growls at her and, like, it just sits there, doesn't say anything. I just, like, okay. And this is the part where you're talking about how he's like, do you know how close I came to crossing the line and breaking the treaty?
Yeah.
Was it that serious, man?
Well, that's not the first time he talks about it.
No, it's not.
So he keeps putting it back on her.
Yeah.
That, like, if something happens, this is your fault. Like, I'm trying to protect you. You're the one that's going to make things bad.
This is I feel like a very, an emotionally abusive relationship at this point. Yeah. Because the next thing that happens is he makes Alice kidnap her.
Right.
Because he has to go out of town again, and she brings her to the house, to the Cullen house. Right. Yes.
Yep.
And what the fuck, man? I get Alice is trying to, like, help her brother out and, like, whatever, but, like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah.
This is ridiculous.
And, like, she's just like, well, I just don't want him to be mad at me. Like,
yeah.
Okay.
Right. You don't see anything wrong with this? So while she's kidnapped and is hanging out in the house, we get Rosalie's story.
Yeah.
How did you feel about Rosalie's story?
So I don't want to say I was like, Rosalie's story is obviously traumatic.
Yes.
Right. So it was interesting, or I don't even know if interesting is the right word.
Yeah.
Happy to hear another story from another vampire. Obviously, her story was very traumatic and it was not a happy story. So I can understand a little bit, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, but I was happy to hear she got her revenge.
Yes, she did.
But I don't know. After that whole story, I still thought it was just like her reason for not liking Bella was like,
you're just gonna throw it away.
Well, that in like, you're throwing it, but she was like, oh, I was jealous of, because Edward's never shown anybody attention before, and you. And
that was a weird turn, because it goes from like, she says, can't you see that I would trade everything I have to be you, and you have a choice that I didn't have. That whole reason makes sense. And then she throws in the reason that you're saying, which is like, you could have just left it at the other one, though.
Right. Yeah.
Why did it have to be that, like, Edward has said no to all of these other people, and you're the person that he says yes to.
Right. Like shallow feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I thought in this conversation, I started writing classic Bella. I'm now that person. Okay. I have on here classic Bella. Rosalie is sharing difficult truths with you about her past, and your response to that is, would you like me better? Would you like me better if I chose to stay human? Girl, get over yourself. Like, is that really gonna sway you?
Right.
Like, stop being a selfish little...
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely, like, yeah, I don't think it would change her mind, but, like, so what's the reason for needing to know if Rosalie would like you? It's not going to make you change anything.
Yeah, it's just such, like, a childish thing to say. So.
Yeah.
And then, like, Rosalie even talks about, like, oh, he loves you more than anything and more than you know, and it terrifies him to be away from you, and that's why we're doing what we did, and blah, blah, blah. And, well, I mean, Edward, sir, you could change this.
Exactly.
You've had many opportunities.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. All right, so after we learn Rosalie's story, the next day at school is when we have... Oh, go ahead.
I had one, because, like, the end of the chapter ends there, and then she goes to school the next day. But I did have a sticky note, and I was just kind of, like, thinking to myself, Edward is gone. This is, like, what, now the second time he's left or something? How? I don't quite understand how she's okay with Edward being gone. Like, in the other two books, if he left her for even, like, the weekend, she was, like, sighing and, like, staring at where he eats lunch if he was there and, like, stuff like that.
So
half a book ago, this wouldn't have happened.
So
she would have self-isolated.
I think the difference is that she didn't know when he was coming back before, or if he was coming back. So this time she knows that he's only gone for a couple days to go hunting. I think that's the difference.
Yeah, maybe. So I'm not disagreeing.
Yeah,
but I feel like I remember a part where like, because maybe you're probably right and I'm just not remembering, but I don't know. I don't know. Sorry, go ahead.
You just hate Bella.
I hate Bella. I hate what feels like inconsistencies.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Okay, fair.
I'll walk that one back.
Okay.
Because it's not a hill that I'm going to die on, because there's plenty other examples of how bad of a person she is.
Yes. Okay, so then the next time they go to school and she gets away and Jacob comes in, swoops her out. And it's on this trip to La Push that we learn of Quill imprinting.
Yes.
And this is when we find out. I actually really like how he explains it, that because the person that he imprints on is on a 2-year-old.
Right.
And I like that he explains it, because it says, like, you would do anything for them, be anything for them. You become whatever they need you to be, whether that's a protector, a lover, a friend, a brother. Like, the imprint doesn't have to be romantic. I feel like it ultimately typically becomes romantic because you're everything that person needs and wants. But I do like his explanation of what that actually means.
Right. Yeah. So this is actually the first part that I remember them talking about imprinting. I don't remember it in the beginning of the book. So this is me remembering where they talked about it the first time. And I do have, I think at the beginning of this chapter, I did have one sticky note, because they're on the beach and they're talking, and she, Bella says, Charlie's blatant preference for my Quayout friends is so unfair. I wonder if he would feel the same if he knew the choice was really between vampires and werewolves. And my sticky note says, I think Charlie would pick neither, Bella. Like,
probably fair.
Are you, what? Like, I can't believe he sided with Jacob, the werewolf.
You might find out later.
Yeah. I just think it's silly.
Yes, that is. Yes.
Knowing at the level that I know right now.
Yes.
At the end of the book, it's silly.
Yes. No, I agree.
If it changes later, I have no clue. Yeah. But
he might find out some things in the next book. He might. Mm-hmm. This is a totally random note that has nothing to do with anything, but I want to tell you, apparently Stephenie Meyer was in her quote unquote era before Taylor Swift was, because on page 179, Bella says, "This was my happy era." And I was like, fuck you and your eras. I hate that terminology, like the I'm in my reading era, I'm in my blah 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 era. No, fuck off. But yes, that was just one little note here. So Edward is back. She's left La Push, whatever. He has now made the switch. Edward is now nice Edward again and is like, you know what? I get it. I was dumb to be concerned. You're just as safe with Jacob as you are with me. Like, he's a completely new person.
Yeah, I didn't understand how that swap happened so fast. I was like, shocker. Like, I honestly was not expecting this new tolerance level.
No, I think
no way.
Maybe the only thing I can suspect is that maybe he was like, she's gonna keep sneaking out. I might as well, at least if I know that she's not going by herself. You know what I mean? Right. Like, to the line.
Yeah. I can mitigate it.
Yeah, like there's much less time of her being alone if she sneaks off, because that whole drive then she's alone, where obviously we know that the new way is that he drops her off with Jacob. So I feel like that's the only way, like the only thing that makes sense to explain how quick it happened is that he was like, well, she's going to do it anyway. I might as well make her as safe as possible.
Right. But even that, this swap is so
drastic.
Drastic. Thank you.
Yes.
That's the word, like, so drastic that, like, it's how?
Yeah.
How do you just wake up one morning and you're like, I'm a good person again?
Yeah. I'm no longer jealous. I have no jealousy. You can go do whatever you want over there.
Right. So the later I got in the book, I was almost shocked at, I don't want to say shocked, but it was interesting how in the beginning of the book, Edward is kind of a dick, and then near the end of the book, it kind of swaps almost, where now, like, Jacob is like the shitty one, and Edward is the tolerant one, and I was like, what is going on here?
Yes.
Like, what are you doing, Stephenie? Like, she was writing all of this, and she's like, man, I'm making Edward out to be the dick. I really need to do something.
I gotta switch this. Yes.
Right. I can't have Edward be the bad guy.
Yes.
So before we move on, you told me to point this out to you. We went a little bit past it already, I think. Page 187.
Okay. Hold on.
The middle of the page.
Okay.
Here it is again. Edward's weird lip fetish.
Oh, trace the shape of my lip. Oh, but it was his tongue and not his finger.
Which is equally as weird. When you, like...
I feel like it's less weird somehow.
It is less weird, but still, if you think about, like, fingers you guys can't see me, but, like, just tracing the outsides of my lips, I don't think like my lips. I think like the skin around the lips. So I'm just imagining Edward just like, like around her face. And I'm just like, what is going on?
What a freak, man.
Cold as ice. His tongue lightly traced the shape of my lips. Like, I imagine somebody putting on lip liner. That's what I imagine his tongue doing. Just like,
okay, that's creepy. We're not picturing that anymore.
Sorry, guys. I mean, unless you're into that.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry I made fun of your fetish.
Okay.
A little.
Okay, great.
Not all the way.
Not fully, yes. Okay, so she makes her way back from La Push to, well, Jacob takes her back home since he's the one who broke her out of school. And this is when she finds that somebody has been in her room. But yeah, so this is the part where they're just kind of hanging out at the house. There's not really a whole lot going on. They're talking about colleges because Jacob leaves and Edward comes in. They're talking about colleges. They're talking about all the things, whatever. But we're going to move on because that doesn't matter. Jacob invites her out to La Push to have their council meeting or whatever they're doing. And again, with the major switch from Edward, where he's like, you don't have to ask my permission, Bella. Well, fuck it. Yeah. So he says, yep, cool, you can go. Everybody says yes.
Before she goes to the push, this is the part where Edward, she finds out that Edward bought a motorcycle too. This is where she's talking about she's gonna take her bike and give it to Jacob and stuff like that. And then like 2 paragraphs later, Edward's like, I bought a motorcycle. And she's like, and then he like backtracks and he's like, oh, I didn't realize that this was like a you and Jacob thing.
Yeah, he realizes. He's like, I realize that now.
Right. And I was just like, what is going on? And also, shut the fuck up, Bella.
Yeah.
Because she's like, I stared at the beautiful machine, and beside it, my bike looked like a broken tricycle. I felt a sudden wave of sadness that I realized that this is not a bad analogy for the way I probably look next to Edward.
It's probably true.
Yeah. But I did want to bring it up because I was happy that finally somebody is like, you need to wear a helmet, Bella.
Yeah, he bought her all the gear.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so the reason I bring this up is because this is one of my sticky notes that I told you about earlier where I was like, what the hell is going on, Stephanie?
Okay.
Because she puts in here that she's like, Bella wants to give the bike back to Jacob.
Mm-hmm.
So Edward puts the motorcycle in the trunk of a Volvo and drives it up.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. I was like, how did we get this into the back of a Volvo?
I was like, Stephanie, did you do any math here? Did you look up anything?
Well, and then when they get to the line, Jacob puts it in the back of his Rabbit, which is a smaller car than that.
I don't know if he ever does.
Yeah, I feel like he does. Yeah.
Because I thought because I think I put I put at the end of that chapter what happened to the motorcycle, because I took it as he just put it on the ground. Jacob led her to the car. They got in the car and they drove away. And I was like, what happened to the motorcycle? But I believe you.
Hold on. Sorry. Yeah. I don't think they say it specifically, but he says like he holds it there and he puts her in a bear hug. And then I assumed that he grabbed it and put it in the back of the car. Like, they never talk about it again. So
yeah. But the main point here was like, Stephanie,
where do you know how big a bike is?
Where did you put the motorcycle again? In the trunk of the Volvo?
Like, yes, exactly.
Okay, girl.
Yes.
Whatever. So I give up.
Okay, so after the motorcycle debacle, we get to La Push, where they're gonna have the council meeting, and we learn the whole Quayu story of how the magic turns them into werewolves and like all the things. So, do you have thoughts on this story of theirs?
Not really like thoughts. I mean, I enjoyed reading it. When you get to the end of the second story where they're talking about the third wife.
Did you feel the foreshadowing?
I definitely felt the foreshadowing.
It was some pretty intense foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's probably the only thing that I was like, okay, so now I know what happens at the end of the book. Thanks.
Right.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Exactly. Yes. So, I mean, I don't know if we want to get into the story at all, but just like we find out all the things. She gets the third wife, where the third wife sacrifices herself, and then she falls asleep and Jacob takes her back home. And then she has this conversation with Edward, and my note says, I think this is the first time, or one of the first times, that I actually feel for Bella. Because in the story before, when they're talking about, when he makes the shift, they're talking about how she gets her little jealousy and she asks him about that vampire Tanya, and he's like, I didn't want her, I didn't like her. He has shown his entire like time that she's known him that he doesn't have any desire for vampires. And I also understand how hard self-doubt can be. So when she has a moment where she tells him that she's afraid of becoming a vampire because she doesn't know if he will like her in the same way, I wrote that, I said, I think this is one of the first times that I really feel for her, because self-doubt is hard, or maybe I'm just too hormonal.
It really hit me right here today.
It did. But yes, because in that moment on Saturday when I read this, I was like, oh, Bella, I feel really bad for you that this is how you're feeling about it.
Yeah.
Just because I understand what, like, it's such a massive change that, and she knows that he loves her now. And so everyone keeps like scaring her, like, you're not going to be able to function for a year. You're not, like, there's all of these things. And she has this massive fear of like, does that mean you're not going to feel the same? And I feel for her.
Yeah.
I have a moment of caring. It goes away quickly, but I do have a moment of being like, okay. And then this is where we make a massive change with Edward. And I wrote, this is why I used to love Edward, because he tells her, you'll always be my Bella. You'll just be a little more durable. And I was like,
oh yeah,
yes.
I thought that was funny. But I did have another, I can't remember if it's right here. I think it's about the same area, but they're talking about, they're just talking and, about everything that you said, and has that thing where she says, the thing is, in my mind, marriage and eternity are not mutually exclusive or mutually inclusive concepts. And I want to know,
what the fuck?
What are the other options?
Yes, exactly.
Come on, Stephanie.
Tell me.
Tell me what are the other options?
Yes.
Because I don't fucking know. It's like, it was like another thing that I read and I was like, what the fuck, Stephanie?
Yes.
Stop trying to ruin the book.
Exactly. We also, in this same section of conversation, is going back to the earlier conversation that you were having about or like the topic that you brought up about how she's like, I can't get married, blah, 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 because my mom or whatever. And now her reason is because I'm not that girl. I'm not who gets married right out of high school like some small town hick who got knocked up by her boyfriend. What the fuck is that?
Throwing down some shade.
Seriously. Come on, Stephanie. Get your shit together, man.
Right. So
yeah.
I have one sticky note where it's not even an important thing to the book, but she goes, it's after their conversation, and the title, or not the title, but the beginning of this paragraph says, time continued to move too fast. And my sticky note says, I wish this book would move too fast. I can't.
Nicole.
I couldn't do it. And then I don't have any more sticky notes. That's page 278. I don't have another single sticky note until 326 because I was like, I cannot do this.
Okay.
I was so
let me tell you what happens between now and 326 then. Okay.
I read it. I was just like, nope, don't care. My sticky note at the end of 326, there's always a long spot of nothing happening in the middle of her books.
Yes. So true. So before we get to 326, which happens to be Jacob's confession that he loves her, before we get there, we get Jasper's full story.
Oh yeah, we do get that. Yep.
So you find out that he was in the military and was changed ultimately to become like an army to take over colonies, basically.
Yeah.
So any thoughts on Jasper's story?
Another, traumatic story. And I like Jasper. I have no issues with Jasper so far in the book. Like, everybody's like, oh, she's the unstable one.
Yeah.
Is he? Well, no. I don't know. Jasper seems to be pretty important in this book.
Right?
So, yeah. I was happy to hear the story. Was it a sad story? Yes, of course. But yeah, it was still.
In that story, we do learn too that newborns are super strong because they're still full of their own human blood.
Human blood.
Yes. All right, moving along. Jacob's confession. That when he tells her that he is in love with her, and I do think it's cute that he's like, I want you to know, because I want you to know all of your options.
Yes.
I don't want any miscommunication to stand in our way. And you know what, Jacob? You're right. I do not appreciate the miscommunication trope.
100%.
So thank you, Jacob. And this is where he kisses her and she punches him and breaks her hand.
Yes. So I think before she actually kisses him, or she punches him in the face. When he says, "I'm in love with you, Bella," my thought here was, poor Jacob, pick someone better.
Yeah.
And then that whole thing with like the kiss and she punches, I was immediately like, man, Jacob, like, what the fuck? Not a good look.
It's not his fault. I mean, it is his fault that he kissed her without, yes, but it's not his fault she broke her hand is what I mean. She's the stupid one who thought that it would be smart to fucking punch him and he's a wall.
Yeah. So then she takes off and she gets home. Yes. And Charlie is there.
I love this interaction. Do you hate it?
Well, Jacob takes her home, right? Yeah. Okay. So I just had it's like when she goes, oh yeah, he goes, why did she hit you? And Jacob's like, because I kissed her. And he's like, good for you, kid. I was just like, Charlie.
Honestly, I think the only reason he said that is because he hates Edward so much that he's like anything to get him away.
Right. Charlie, come on, dude.
I think that it's hilarious. I love this interaction. I also love that as soon as they know that Edward is coming to pick her up to take her to Carlisle, Charlie is like, you should probably leave, and Jacob's like, nope, I'm sticking around.
Take my chances.
I do love that. It's so funny. And then also we get Edward being very, like, he says, if you ever kiss her again, I will break your jaw for her.
Yeah.
But this is also where we find out, actually, he will break his jaw if he does it without Bella's permission. If Bella gives permission, he will not retaliate.
Yes.
More foreshadowing. Dun, dun, dun.
Fine line.
Yes. And then for me, so this is page 340 where we get this. I don't have another posting note until 378.
Yeah, I got like one at like 359.
Okay, what do you have?
So I think this is where they're at the graduation.
Okay, probably.
And yep. So, she's going through the graduation. Charlie's there. She sees Charlie in the crowd. She sees Jacob in the crowd, and Billy. They come out to, like,
yes,
all the way from La Push to, like, you did a great job, Bella. And she's a bitch.
Yeah, she is.
Not to them, but she's like so worked up that she says right here that, like, Edward's all pissed, like, not pissed, but they've just found out some news and he's all like wound up or whatever.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
It's because
Charlie,
in that moment is when Bella tells her that they think it's Victoria and that the newborns are Victoria's and whatever. So yes, this is that part.
Yes. Yeah. And so, like, the reason I marked it though is because, Charlie, says something to Edward, like, hey, we're gonna go get something to eat, do you want to come too, Edward? And Edward just says no thank you, and he says it stiffly, face hard and cold.
Yes.
And Charlie's like, oh, do you have plans with your parents, and blah blah blah, and Edward's just like, if you'll excuse me, and he, like, walks away. And Charlie's like, what is going on? And her thought there is, Edward is always more polite than Charlie deserves.
Why does Charlie deserve not to have him be polite to him?
Right. Like,
that was really hard for me to say, but it was because I don't understand.
Right. So, like, yes. So you have run away. Bella has run away at least twice.
Yes.
Once in each book. One time she gets wildly hurt.
Yeah.
And another time she just disappears, and she's basically a missing person for 3 days. He has no idea where she is, no contact.
Right.
And after the first time, you think he would probably assume that she's hurt somewhere.
Yeah. And then you act like a fucking, like, zombie when he left you the last time.
Right. And then, so his assumption is it's not a healthy relationship.
Yes.
He has a little animosity towards Edward.
Yeah.
And maybe he's not the most, like, I'm not going to forgive you right away.
Right.
And she's like, he doesn't deserve this. This is Edward. And
yeah. Nope.
Bella, you're a terrible person.
Okay. So after all that, we get to the graduation party. And Jacob shows up with a couple of his friends, which is great. And in this moment, though, is when Alice sees that a decision has been made, and so they're going to figure out their plan with the the newborns coming to Forks, and so Jacob is going to go figure out how the rest of the pack can help.
Yeah, I was like, Bella is literally the only person at this point who thinks that involving the werewolves is a bad idea.
Yeah, I don't no, it's so stupid. And it's just because she's like, they'll get hurt. Do you not understand that the whole reason they exist is to hunt vampires?
Right. And you basically watch them rip Laurent to pieces.
Yes.
It was so silly. And also, I think at this point in the book, I was like, oh, great. We finally got to what I knew was going to happen on page 150 or That's something, right?
Yes.
So I was like, I could have not read the middle 200 and been perfectly fine.
Yep, exactly. So we're going to jump ahead a little bit from the graduation party to the practice. That's kind of, I feel like, the next big thing. A couple things, I don't think anything really happens between those two other than they make a plan to go meet out in the opening, and the pack is going to come, and Sam basically says that they'll watch and listen, but they're not going to participate in the practice. So they practice.
Yeah, this was a really boring part.
It was so unnecessary. I didn't need to see you guys doing these practices and stuff. None of it really paid off, I don't think. Nothing that we learned in that section helped us later.
Right. It was just everything. You didn't even get to see that part of the fight, minus the ending when they're cleaning up the bodies, right?
Yeah. Okay, so I feel like we can jump through a lot of this stuff is because basically it's her fighting about where's she gonna be, where's Charlie gonna be, they're figuring out who's gonna be where, and this is where they basically figure out that Bella can be up in the mountain, and they're planning on sending Seth up there with her so that he can communicate with the pack. And we also learn here that Jacob is second in command. He is the beta, which, why did she make such a big deal? I don't think this is in this section. It's in some other part. Beta is a made up word. This is not a fucking made up word.
Yes, I have that somewhere in here.
Do you? Yeah, I don't know where it is, but I'm going to talk about it now.
Yes, as you should, because I have the same thing written down.
What? She says it's a made up word. What?
Yeah, Jacob chuckled at my invented term. Sam was the first and the oldest. And I was like,
no,
Stephanie, that's not an invented term.
No,
you didn't invent pack hierarchy.
No, you did not. That is a true thing. He would be the beta. Thing. Yes. But
I don't know.
Good for him not wanting to be alpha, or wanting to take over. Also, something else that never pays off is the fact that we learn that Embry could be either a descendant of Quill's or Sam's or Jacob's, not a descendant, but related to one of those three. We never get a payoff from any of that.
Right.
And there might be a payoff in Breaking Dawn, but I literally don't remember that. And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So around this area, this is where I was talking about earlier, how much I really start, before I'm just wildly annoyed by her, and I know it comes off as but now I'm really starting to hate her because we haven't touched on it yet, so I'm just going to bring it up now, but she convinces Edward to be with her on the mountain and leave his family behind. Regardless of how the ending of the story turned out. I don't like the use of emotional terrorism.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because it's she says, I can't stand it if you leave me again.
Right.
Which is what you were saying earlier. Now all of a sudden we're back to that where she's like, I can't be without you.
Right. you remember how crazy I went last time. You don't want that to happen again. Like, okay.
Yeah.
So you're the Edward now.
Uh-huh.
And then, like, 2 pages later, she says, I didn't mean it that way. Like, that you have to choose, me or your family.
That's exactly what you meant.
No, that's exactly what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
You just said that.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yes,
what you're saying?
And he is so like calm about it. He's like, no, it's fine. This is what compromise is. You gave me the 2 things that you would be okay with, and I chose the one that I am okay with. Like, I was like, no.
Yeah, this is just more convenience and poor writing.
Yes. Okay, so all these decisions are made, blah, 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 blah. Before the whole battle thing, we get the conversation between Bella and Edward about the engagement.
Mm-hmm.
They figure out what the actual prerequisites are that Edward requires and what Bella requires, and they this is when they discuss Bella wants human sex.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of her prerequisite. Damn it, I can't say that word. This is one of her prerequisites.
There you go.
That she wants to have sex before she's turned.
Mm-hmm.
And Edward is so against it.
Yeah.
But ultimately, he says, all right. He says,
after we're married.
Yes, if you marry me, then we will have human sex, and then I will change you.
Then I will turn you.
Yes.
And then we'll have vampire sex.
That's right. So, yes. Let's see.
Yeah, this part of the book was kind of just like, I didn't care about any of that. I didn't care about their plans for the wedding. I didn't care about their engagement, their rings.
Yes, this is when they do a lot of wedding talk, because Alice is like, you can't elope. You have to let me give you a wedding. Yeah, we get a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so we're just going to skip ahead because all of that's boring. And we get to the part where Jacob is going to carry her up the hill, because we are now on the day of arrival of the newborns. And so he's going to carry her up the hill. And I wrote, oh, Jacob, because he said, you could kiss me, for example. I don't mind if you want to use me as an experiment to find out, like, if she wants somebody else or whatever.
Some human sex.
Yes. And so I don't think he knows about this conversation, but let's just assume.
Yeah. I mean, he wants sex. But...
That's right.
Yeah.
And then this is when we find out that Edward basically is like giving permission. Like, if she says yes, then I won't punch you.
Mm-hmm.
And then, randomly, we find out that as the alpha, Sam is now the chief of the whole tribe.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. All right. So we are skipping ahead a little bit, unless you have something, but I am now on the hill in the nighttime. And
Bella is freezing.
And
she's a little popsicle.
Do you remember in New Moon when I said there's some pretty hard foreshadowing going on here, when he was like, I could be shirtless in a snowstorm. I'm 108 degrees. I was like, foreshadowing.
Right. You did not try very hard there, Stephanie.
No.
Yeah.
I really laughed at the part though where Jacob says, go fetch a space heater. I'm not a Saint Bernard.
Yes. Yeah,
that made me laugh.
It gets a little bit witty in here. And
yes.
I enjoy it a little, like the Jacob Edward, like, I don't get friendship building, if you want to call it. I do enjoy that, but I'm irritated at how back and forth it is. Like, they flip-flop back and forth, which, whatever you call it, there's still not a lot of trust there.
Yes.
But that whole part where she's literally freezing, she cannot talk because she is basically shutting down. Her lips are purple, she can't feel anything, and he's like, just let me in the fucking tent and let me warm you up. Like,
yes.
Foreshadowing. But
yes.
Both of them are wildly childish about it.
Yes.
Like, Edward and Bella, she's like, don't touch me. He's like,
do you want to die of hypothermia?
You are not a vampire yet. And
no.
Edward even knows that he cannot touch you right now. It will not help.
No.
And even he's kind of just like, he's not happy about it, which I get, whatever.
Right.
But for somebody who is so cold and like, you're literally shutting down, just stop being a fucking baby about it.
Yes.
And it's not like he had to take off all your clothes. He's just climbing in you're wearing layers and layers. He's just climbing in a tent with you in a sleeping bag, whatever.
Exactly. They definitely, I do like the whole exchange, like you said. I do like how the fact that Edward can read his mind is hilarious to me, that he's in this position and can read his mind. But like, yes, everyone acts so weird about it, where Jacob is like, obviously this is the only option we have. Everybody shut the fuck up. Otherwise she's going to die. Because the other option that Edward came up with was that they were just going to run down the mountain.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Yes. So we have a lot of back and forth here. At the end of this little exchange, this is when Edward says, Jacob, if it weren't for the fact that we were natural enemies and that you're also trying to steal away the reason for my existence, I might actually like you. And Jacob says, maybe if you weren't a disgusting vampire who was planning to suck out the life of the girl I love. Well, no, not even then.
Yes, that was cute.
Yes, that was, I really like that part, because Jacob is like, I'm not going to lie. We're not friends.
We ain't bros.
So we get through all of this. We get to a point to where Jacob is getting ready to leave, and we make it through the night. Seth is there. Jacob's gonna leave and head down to the fight, and this is when Edward decides to have the conversation about them being engaged. And
plays a tricky trick.
Yes. I do like, though, at first I was like, wow, that was really rude, because he said, I never promised to fight fair. And I was like, you knew he was listening. And then later we find out that the next move that Jacob made is also. So I feel like once we know that they're both like
playing dirty.
Yes, intentionally doing this stuff to like get the other one, I feel better about it. But
right, yeah, I did feel bad for Jacob in this part for the same reason that you said, because you find out that Edward was being a little bit of a dick.
But then Jacob, with his fucking emotional abuse, I'm gonna let myself get killed if you don't kiss me right now. Okay, Jacob.
I thought that was weird. I was just, okay, I don't know what's going on here, minus you're all being children.
Yes. I mean, we do later find out it was because he knew Edward was listening, and he wanted her to say yes to him kissing her. But the way he went about it was like, I wrote down, it's the first time I hate Jacob. Like, you manipulative little butthole. You just said whatever. But later we find out Edward was like, I mean, in just a few pages, Edward is like, do you really think he would sacrifice himself? There's no fucking way.
Right. He's like, he knew what he was doing.
He did the only thing he could to make you say yes for him to kiss you.
Mm-hmm.
And that kiss. That's funny. Edward said, and I thought I fought dirty. He makes me look like the patron saints of ethics. Although we do find out later, though, that this kiss did actually show her that she loved him.
Mm-hmm. Bum, bum, bum.
Bum, bum, bum. Okay, so we get past all of this. Edward is back to being he's like, I'm not mad at you, everything's fine. And then Victoria shows up.
You can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as she shows up, I have a sticky note that says, oh, surprise, it's Victoria.
It's Victoria. Yes.
Nobody saw this happening.
And then for about 15 pages, they fight with her. Seth gets hurt. She pulls out her... Go ahead.
Stephanie conveniently gives Bella a weapon.
Yeah, I was gonna say, she pulls out her third wife story. And then Victoria's dead.
And then Victoria is defeated.
Boom, boom, boom. Done.
So easy.
Yeah, done and done. I did think, though, I wrote, this is so stressful when Seth is laying on the ground. I just imagined a puppy laying on the ground crying, and I was like, no. So I wrote, this is so stressful.
I know. Well, and then Edward later is like, he was faking, and I was like, in my mind, I said the same thing. I was like, if there was a puppy crying, it doesn't matter. I would be like, oh my god, I have to save the puppy. I actually have a sticky note earlier in the book that I didn't talk about, but I just said, it says, how can Edward think that she's scared of a puppy dog? She doesn't have any reason to be scared of a giant puppy.
A big puppy who's going to do everything he can in his power to protect her and keep her warm and all cuddly.
Right.
Yeah, so not only is this puppy laying on the ground, but she knows this puppy in human form too, and so she's scared for him, and it's so sad.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I was stressed out the whole time. And then as they're making their way back down, because now they know the Volturi is coming, they're going to show up. Jacob gets hurt. And that part was really sad. When you see Edward drop to his knees because he can hear the scream through the pack.
Mm-hmm.
That part, oh my God.
Mm-hmm. That was super sad.
Yes. So Jacob got hurt. He's gonna be fine. And then Edward is basically just telling her Jacob's okay or whatever, but now they have to meet the Volturi. And so they get to the bottom of the hill, and this is where we meet Bree Tanner. the girl that Carlisle saves, that the Volturi then come in and kill, is the novella, is the short second life of Bree Tanner. So what
a weird book.
Remember I told you it's a very weird character to pick for a novella? So basically in that book, you get all the newborn stuff. So as Victoria is creating the newborn army and all that kind of stuff, you get all of that from Bree's point of view.
Interesting.
In that book, and then up obviously until she's killed by the Volturi.
Good thing you brought that up, because I did not remember that.
Yes, I wanted to make sure I point that out. But this is where, and I remember my sister said, you don't even really get to meet her, you just see her, and that's all we get. We get her complaining that Bella smells too human, and then her crying about Jane torturing her, and then they kill her.
Yep. Basically.
Yep. So so the Volturi come. Not much happens with the Volturi. It's so anticlimactic that it's okay, they show up and they're just oh, interesting. no survivors, and then they'll be interested to hear that Bella's still human. Okay, bye.
Right. Yeah, it was so anticlimactic. I think that's why I missed it earlier, because I just, at the end of that chapter, I just put a sticky note that said, oh, Bella escapes the Volturi's demands again.
Yep.
And then I just was like, end of story.
Move on. Yes.
Moving on.
Yeah.
They played such a small role in this one.
Yeah.
It didn't really feel like it meant anything.
It really didn't, other than it does set up what happens at Breaking Dawn. So now that they've come back and seen that Bella is still human, it kind of plays into the fact that like they come back in the next book to find some things out.
Yeah, I figured it was just a setup for something else, because it didn't really feel anything. And
also, remember in this one, it was very clear, and it's a very, not a big point, but like something to pay attention to, that they did not see the werewolves.
Yes.
So, yeah, they don't know that there's werewolves around yet.
Yeah, I thought that was also really convenient that, they didn't smell them. They didn't.
They were all over the place.
Right. You didn't, like. She even said, what happened to the other group? Oh, we split up too. You're telling me 3 of you took on 10 vampires?
Uh-huh. Yep, exactly.
I'm surprised she's not surprised.
Exactly.
She knows what their gifts are. Mm-hmm. And none of them are her gifts.
No. None of them are torturous.
Right. So.
Yes. All right. So the Volturi leave, blah, blah, blah. And this is when we find out Charlie was there and saw that he, that Jacob showed up hurt. And I think it's funny that Charlie is like, with a mouth like that, he'll be fine. Like,
yeah.
It's like, okay. So weird.
Cussing up a storm.
Yes.
So I had like it's just like another thought of just how like Stephanie just says things. I'm convinced she just says things now. Like the whole thing with the motorcycle and all this other stuff. She makes a comment, that Charlie, I think, says it is, there's no hurry to go see him. If you realized how much extra morphine Carlisle gave him, with his temperature burning it off so quickly. Stephanie.
Well, Charlie didn't say that.
Who said that?
Well, Charlie doesn't know that his temperature is that high.
Alice.
Okay.
Sorry. So Alice says that.
Yes.
My bad. The sticky note was covering that.
Oh.
But my problem with this was, I was just like, man, Stephanie, that's not how morphine works. I may not be able to read. No.
Is it not? Because I believed it.
No. Your morphine is like synthesized through your liver. It doesn't matter how hot you get. So I was just like, Stephanie, stop spreading lies.
What if his liver is 150 degrees?
Now, did he burn through it faster because he's a magical werewolf? I would have believed that. I would have been like, you know what? That makes sense because he's a werewolf. But because she's like, he had a temperature.
Okay,
Stephanie.
That's fair. So yes, I do believe it because of like his healing ability and all that. Right. I feel like his body would for sure like push it out, basically.
So
or just like suck it all in and then
because he even says it later. I think later he's talking to Bella and he's like, I'm all loopy because Carlisle didn't know how much morphine to give me, so he just doped me up. And I'm like, see, that makes sense. You're a werewolf. He doesn't know what to do. But
I do think there's a Carlisle even says like, I didn't know how much to give him. I never went to vet school. I think that in one of their future life timelines or whatever, Carlisle might go to vet school because then he can treat the werewolves. It does not
that'd be cute.
That does not happen in Breaking Dawn, but this is just my fanfic.
Aw, that would be so cute.
It's so cute. All right. I think
I want to hear where your next sticky note is because my next sticky note is Bella being mean to Charlie.
What page?
590.
Okay, you go first.
So on this page, this is where Charlie requests for, because he's talking about like Jacob and all this other stuff and Edward, and he's like, I had a feeling after that something was gonna happen, something big, right, with you and whoever. And Charlie only says, like, I just request advance notice of anything that you do. He doesn't even say, don't do anything stupid, don't run off, don't do these things. He doesn't even put limits. He just says, I just want to be able to give you a hug goodbye. And she is such a bitch about it.
Yeah, she is.
Like, she's pissed that he put that on her. Like, come on. Like, the man told you that he loves you and he just wants to be able to say goodbye to you. And she is like, oh, I can't believe he would put rules. Yeah. Come on,
Bella. All right. Yeah, she's fun. I feel like Charlie's being so understanding about it all, and just all right, anyway, so Bella finally makes her way out to La Push to be able to see Jake, and he wakes up to talk to her a little bit, and it's funny that she tells him that Edward wasn't even mad about the kiss, and he's like, what the hell, man? He's like, he didn't even give you an ultimatum or anything. But now, and she explains to him that, like, I do love you, but it's always Edward, blah blah blah. And he says, now I know I did everything I could.
So at the end of this chapter, I like read the whole thing, and I was like, I took out of this, I read what she says. She says, I love you, Jacob. She acknowledges she has feelings for Jacob. They're not as deep as her feelings for Edward, just like you said. But I don't believe Bella is capable of deep feelings.
Really?
Bella is a houseplant.
What?
She's basically a houseplant. Because think about it. All right, so I said this to myself, and then I started thinking about it later. I was like, actually, that really works.
Okay, tell me.
Because you have a house plant, and in order for it to thrive, you have to water it, you have to put it in the sunshine, you have to like help it grow.
Okay.
She needs to be a weed. She just needs to be like strong, and wherever she is, she can just fucking grow and thrive. So and instead, she's just unless Edward is actively like telling her he loves her and in her face with her all the time and telling her she can't do it alone.
So I think then this assessment is exactly why she has to end up with Edward, because according to Renee, he literally is on her every move and is like ready to just be there for whatever she needs at any given time. So clearly he's all right with her being a houseplant. He's the perfect pair to her houseplant.
Yes. I also want to say that I think she has the IQ of a houseplant.
Okay. I will accept this.
But that was my last note. I didn't even take any more notes because I was like, whatever. The rest of the book's not important.
No.
Poor Jacob just takes off into the woods and wants to be left alone.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I don't have any other thing either. The last thing that happens is he gets the wedding invitation because Edward was like, I feel like you should have a choice. And he freaks out and runs away. He turns into a wolf and runs away. The end. Give me your rating, Nicole. Is it a 1?
I give it less than a 2. Just because of how long it is. It is so very unnecessarily long. There's no reason for it to be that long.
I agree.
And
There's
I didn't realize
that should be cut out.
Well, so besides like how long it is and how much I dislike Bella, I didn't realize that I could take so much away from a rating just because the book is so long. Yeah, I really struggled with not skimming a lot of this one. Mm-hmm. I know I told you earlier, it took me, I was like last minute finishing this up, but
yes,
man, I was over the book. Yeah. I was over it. So all right. But knowing that out of the three of them, I guess I disliked this one the least. Definitely, I dislike the second one more than this one. Oh,
for sure.
So whatever I gave the second one, I think I reserved judgment.
Okay.
It's less than this. So I say, let's say 2 for this one.
Okay.
Book 2 is like half a star.
Perfect.
For being a book.
For being a book. That's right. Okay. I think that's fair. I think I would give this one, I know it's definitely hard for me, but I would give this one probably a 3 because I do remember it being better for one. But I give it a 3 because of the stuff that I did like, because I do like all of the I do like that we learn more about the other vampires. I do like that we learn all of the Quaalude story. I do really enjoy the tent scene and like what we actually get from Jacob and Edward. We just get more of them together in this one, and I really enjoy that. And then more of just some funny, delightful Charlie moments. And I think for all of those reasons, I can't give it a 5 because Bella immediately takes off 2 stars.
That's true.
But for all the things I just said, I will give it 3.
I will give it a little bit more because of all the things you said.
I reminded you of some things.
You reminded me of a couple things, so I'll give it 2.2.
Okay.
5.
2.25. Okay, love that. All right, so before we jump out of here, I want to give a couple of announcements for our next bonus bites. So our next bonus bites is actually going to not be until February 1st. So due to some other things happening and also us doing a end of year wrap up that will be going up on January 1st, we will put bonus bites number 4, Breaking Dawn, on February 1st, and it will be part 1. We're gonna split the book just like the movie. So we will be reading through chapters 1 through 18. So the Breaking Dawn book is broken into 3 different parts. It's the first part is Bella's point of view, the second part is Jacob's point of view, the third part is back to Bella. So chapters 1 through 18 gets you through both Bella's first part and Jacob's part.
Okay.
And I did look it up and I did look at the book a little bit, and we're not going to get it's not an exact cutoff of the movie, but we're very, very close. So for anyone reading along, part 2 will be March 1st. But that's everything. So go to our Instagram, Savor the Story Pod. That's it. At Savor the Story Pod. Instagram, and send us everything. You can send us thoughts there, like DM or whatever, or you can email us at savorthestorypod.com and go to the contact form there. Email us all the things that you want us to know about any of the Twilight books and or movies. All the things. Give us 5 stars. Give us comments. Do all the things. That's it. Okay. Bye.
Okay, bye. Get out of here.